Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn about polyfills. So what is exactly a polyfill? A polyfill is a piece of code, usually JavaScript on the web, used to provide modern functionality on older browsers that do not natively support it. Now what it means exactly is, now uh, as newer versions of JavaScript are coming, they have many new stuffs included in them. So let us consider the ES6 version. Now ES6 has a new feature called generator functions, which was not available in the earlier versions of JavaScript. So in that case, browsers which are essentially running on the earlier versions of JavaScript, when they encounter such a piece of code, they might crash. They might throw some unexpected errors. So polyfill is basically a piece of code which is used to bridge this gap between an older version and a newer version. Okay, so let's see with an example. We were talking about generator functions which were introduced in ES6. So let's see how we write a generator function. So we write it like this: function star, we denote it with a star, gen I, where I is a parameter, any parameter, yield. Now yields values, it yields values, so let's say I plus 10, yield I plus 20. What yielding is exactly I will tell you right now. Okay, so const a equals gen 5. Okay, so now what this function does is, it's different from normal functions. Normal functions, when we call, they execute it entirely from the first step to the last statement. But in generator function, when they encounter the first yield statement, they stop their execution over there. We have to call a dot next function again to start executing from the next line till it encounters another yield statement where it stops again. So example, console.log a dot next. Okay, let's see what it does. So it returns an object uh, which has value of 15 because we passed it as 5. So 5 plus 10, 15, and done is what? Done basically denotes whether the execution of this function is complete or not. So we can see that there is another yield statement already there, already not executed, so that's why my done is false. Now let's print it again. Now see, the value is 25, which means 5 plus 20, 25, and done is false. Now my computer doesn't know whether there is a third yield statement. That's why after the second yield statement it has printed done as false. Now when we execute it for the third time, see, value is undefined and done is true, because on running it for the third term it couldn't find another yield function. It could only find two which had earlier been executed. It cannot find the third yield statement. So it basically stated that my function is completed. Okay, now so basically we need to write a function that does the same thing, but since my earlier versions of JavaScript cannot understand this kind of statements, so we have to find an alternative to it. So how can we do this? Let's comment it out. Okay, so we know that function gen returns an object which has a function next. So it returns an object which has a function next. Okay. Now let us represent these as states, like the first yield statement is state 1, the second yield statement is state 2, and after we have finished the second yield statement, since there are no third yield statements, that is state 3, which means my function is completed. So we are going to apply a switch case structure to achieve this scenario. Okay, so let state state equals 1, first state. Now switch. What will the first state do? Let's see. Okay, case 1. Now we see that it returns an object which has a value as 15 and is done is false. So what it does is returns an object with value as I plus 10 and done as false. Okay, so when we execute this function, const a equals gen 5, console a dot next. Let's see value is 15, done is false. Now in order to go to the next state, we need to initialize the state value to 2. So we will do it in case 1. So state is now being initialized as 2. Now we will do the same thing for case 2. What we will do is initialize it for the next state equals 3. Now return the object which has a value of I plus 20 and its done is still false, because the third case, which is the final case, will say that my done is true, which means my function has completed its execution. So when we execute it again, let's see what it shows. See, value is 15, done is false, and then value is 25 and done is false. So it has executed the second state as well. Now for the third state, we will say case 3. Since this is the final state, we don't have to initialize the state anymore. Return, it will just return the object which has a value of undefined and done as true, because my function execution is complete. So let's see. See, value 15 done false, value 25 done false, value undefined done is true. So we can see that this generator function, which is now in ES6, we can write an alternative of it like this, which can be understood by earlier versions of JavaScript. So this piece of code is basically a polyfill, because this piece of code can easily be understood by the earlier versions. There is no specific denotion like yield statements. There is no such statement. There is not a star to represent this. So this is a simple function with switch case structure in it. So this is basically a polyfill. This is kind of bridging the gap between an earlier version and a new version. If an older browser encounters this function, and it won't be able to understand this. So at that moment it will execute this function uh, to receive the same values. So it just helps our program not to break down in earlier versions. Okay, so this is just like some kind of an optimization, you can say. So hope you like it. Thank you.